Well, this is Bob Grant, the principal of Washington, and thank you for joining me for the updates regarding school reentry at Washington. I want to give parents the opportunity to learn more about the ways that we're reopening school and making it safe for students and for staff and creating a strong learning environment. And I'm Bob Grant, your principal. So I have different members of our PTA asking questions that we feel that many different parents are asking, and I'm going to take the time to respond to you. So first question.
Mr. Grant, what will the day look like for our Plan B students? Also, what will the day look like for our Virtual Academy students?
And thank you, Ms. Olds, for asking, what it looks like for Plan B students as well as Virtual Academy students. And first, let me talk a little bit about Virtual Academy students. So if your child is currently in Virtual Academy, teaching and learning will look exactly the same as it's looked for our first quarter. The students receive approximately 2.5 to a little over 3.5 hours of live instruction, including electives per day, and then around 2.5 hours of the asynchronous learning, which is learning without the direct interaction with a teacher. Our Virtual Academy students, which comprise about 75% of our student population, will be enrolled in electives just like our Plan B students. So you will not notice a significant change if your child is in Virtual Academy. For those families who are coming back into the building under Plan B, many things will look similar, but of course there'll be adjustments because we're creating a safe learning environment while in the midst of managing this pandemic with COVID. So we want to make sure that we have the necessary protocols and procedures in place to keep kids and staff safe. We'll still have arrival the way that we normally do. So students will be coming into the building by bus and a carpool, and I'll talk a little bit about those screening procedures in just a few minutes. But during the actual school day itself, class sizes will be smaller than typical. Those will range from anywhere from 10 to 16 or so kids in a class, including a teacher or an adult. So we'll have, for each grade level, 1 to 2 classes on each team that are taught with Plan B students. Also for Plan B students, they will be either having a mixture of lunch either in their classroom or the cafeteria, because we minimize the number of people in a space. We will reduce our cafe capacity by about 75% or so 50 to 75%. So we'll only have around 40-something kids in the cafe, or students will be socially distanced and having lunch in their classrooms. Students will still have recess, so we'll still get outside and get that activity. But there will be limitations regarding under Plan B. We're not able to use playground equipment, and kids are not able to use shared equipment like balls, but there'll be planned games for kids where they can be socially distanced but outside and running around. As I mentioned, for our Virtual Academy students, our Plan B students will be enrolled in the same electives. The difference will be that we won't change classes. So in order to create the safe learning environment as we bring students back into the building, one of the things I've shared out is the importance of not turning on the taps full blast and letting water pour out. And the same is true when you're trying to have a scaffolded approach to starting a program again. So rather than having students change classes when a bell rings and they're all moving throughout the building and mixing into different groups and going to different classes like we do with a normal school day when we have electives, students will not mix classes for their electives, but instead they'll remain in their homeroom and then get live instruction, but through the computer, just like the Virtual Academy students, where they will do their yoga or they will do their art class or their science activities, but it will be in that homeroom and delivered live through the computer. That way we're not having so many students mix through the normal process of electives. The learning during the day will be on a similar schedule to the Virtual Academy students, with around an hour to an hour and a half for the Plan B students of language arts, about an hour or so in the morning, about an hour of math, and then some additional opportunities for extension or additional practice or support from the teachers with the students who are back in the building. And if your student receives extra services, such as through special ed or Tier 3 intervention supports, those teachers will be working with students in the building as well. Or if you're a virtual academy student, that would still be services remotely through the computer. So the bell schedule when we return will be the same: 8:50 arrival, opening bell, 9:20 closing bell. The only difference will be virtual academy students will start their morning meeting right at 9:15 as they normally do, and then the Plan B students, depending on when they're all in the classroom, will start sometime in that same window, but maybe closer to 9:20. All right, next question.
Hi, Mr. Grant. Can you tell us a little bit about the measures that will be taken at school surrounding things like social distancing and cleaning and other things that you'll be doing to help keep our kids safe? I'm also wondering if you can tell us what will happen if a child gets sick.
Well, thank you, Ms. Dixon, for asking about the different measures that we have in place for social distancing and cleaning to help keep our kids safe. So we've gotten really good guidance from the county around the cleaning of the building throughout the day by our custodial team. We're fortunate we've got 4 custodians on our campus who support maintaining the cleanliness of our building, and in these times to provide the additional precautionary cleaning with the cleaning of touch points throughout the building. Those are things that have a lot of contact, like doorknobs and doorways and stair railings and so forth. Custodians will also do twice a day cleaning of classrooms, and then staff will also have cleaning materials where they can do cleaning on an intermittent basis as they feel necessary, using a variety of cleaning chemicals. Some chemicals need to stay on surfaces for a longer period of time. There are some things like Oxivir, which has a very short time to be on surfaces but still disinfect quickly, around a minute. Others need 5 or more minutes to do that. And the custodial cleaning that will happen in the afternoons will obviously be able to have a longer set time for those chemicals. The social distancing that will take place will be both within the classroom and movement in the building. We've got signage throughout the building about pathways that students move in one direction. Same with our stairwells as we normally have for our electives, but one-way movement to limit the passing back and forth of people in the building, and the spacing of kids approximately 6 feet apart as they're moving through the building. Of course, kids will all have their masks on like any adult. Any adult, when you come on campus, needs to have their mask on. Now I'm in my office right now with my door closed, and I don't have my mask on, and I'm recording myself with my cell phone, so it's appropriate to have your mask off. But if I was in here talking with another adult, I would have my mask on. So families, when coming on campus to drop off or pick up your child, you will need to have your mask on in your car, and we'll talk about carpool in just a few moments. The social distancing in the classroom is that students will be approximately 6 feet apart, spread throughout the room while learning, while recognizing that students will be moving in throughout the room at different points during the day and may move closer than 6 feet. But we do know that the 3 keys to helping to limit the people's exposure to COVID are wearing your mask, not staying within closer than 6 feet for 15 minutes or longer, and frequent hand washing. All classrooms have the waterless cleaner to be used. We'll also be having students wash hands multiple times a day with soap and water. So following those protocols, we can and will aim to keep all people safe. As I've shared out before in my discussions with family, we've been fortunate to be able to practice and learn from having students in the building, because at Washington, since mid-August, we've had approximately 100 students that are in the building, and 80 or so Boys and Girls Club students, as well as the 20 staff children that have been here. We've been doing the social distancing and following these protocols, have not had any cases of COVID on campus for the last 2 months. That doesn't mean that COVID cases will not crop up, because cases of COVID do occur in our larger community, and we're part of that community. But in order to reduce the potential for that and limit any possible spread, we've got very strong protocols in place to do that. All right, our next question.
What will bus and carpool look like? Will the COVID questions be asked and temperatures taken daily?
Well, thank you, Ms. Jeffries, for asking about bus and carpool. So many of the same ways that students arrive and dismiss from campus will be similar this year. Plan B students can arrive by walking, by carpool, or by bus. And they can dismiss in the afternoon by walking, carpool, bus, or Boys and Girls Club. For families that are familiar with what we call walk up, which meant meeting your child in the cafeteria in order to be able to a chance to talk with and engage with other families and park your car while doing that. We will not have walk up for the time being. We'll be using the cafeteria in part to help facilitate carpool dismissal, to have kids socially distanced waiting for families in the cafeteria as well as over by the kindergarten wing. And that way we can quickly get kids to the car, but they are socially distanced while waiting. We're not going to be able to have all of our carpool students sitting on the benches where they normally do. For bus students, we will dismiss them socially distanced from the gym as well. When arriving on campus, all people who are visiting the campus will be asked what we call the COVID questions, and that's true for our students getting off the bus and students arriving by carpool. Staff all have to be asked those questions and answer them as well. And any visitors have to be asked those questions, as well as have their temperature taken. So students, when they're arriving by carpool, you'll come through the carpool loop like you normally do. We'll have a team out there that will ask the car riders, the students, the COVID questions, and boop, take their temperature. And if they pass that screening, the student will get out of their car. If they don't pass the screening because they have a fever or are not able to say no to all the questions, if the parent feels like the temperature reading was wrong, they will pull over to an assigned spot, wait 5 minutes, and have it retaken. Otherwise, they will take their child home. So any child that is not passing the screening in carpool leaves with their parent. Students coming by bus will also be met by a screening team, ask the questions, and have their temperature taken. Any child who does not pass the screening on the bus will immediately walk around the outside of the building with an adult and come into our care center, which is the former Ready to Learn Center, by carpool. And they will wait there with an adult until the parent is contacted and quickly comes to campus to pick up their child. If a walker did not pass the screening, they would also wait in the care center with an adult until they were picked up by a parent. So that's the health screening measures, and all staff have to go through those health screening measures as well before entering the building. In the afternoon, we'll have dismissal through bus and carpool, and students going to the Boys and Girls Club if they're signed up for that. All right, so our next question.
Will students still have elective choice and change classes like they used to? And will there be SSA and AIG services?
All right, so thank you for that question, Mr. Foreman. So it was about elective choices and SSA and AIG. So one of the amazing things about Washington being a gifted and talented program where we grow all students' gifts and talents is having the ability to take an array of electives to grow your gifts and to dig into different areas of learning. So we'll continue with that. Students in grades 3 through 5 will be able to take 2 electives. Students in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd will take 1 elective, and kindergarten students will have a special daily. You know that typically 1st and 2nd grade students this first semester would normally have an elective and a special choice, as would kindergarten students. But I've reduced the number of staff who are teaching electives. Normally all teachers teach an elective class, but I've asked teachers to instead, for classroom teachers, to focus on core instruction and to really prepare for a strong transition with new students coming into the building so they receive strong, well-planned instruction, and our virtual academy students continue to have that strong instruction. So in order to do that, they will not be teaching an elective, but all of our specialists will. That's why there's a reduction in electives. And also, we're not changing classes and mixing kids like we normally do, so that impacts the number of electives that we're able to offer. We'll see what the second semester brings. My goal is always to be back at full speed with our elective program, but always taking into account the safety of students and families and staff first. This current week, families should all have registered for their electives for the second quarter. Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson, our amazing magnet coordinator, for working on that. SSA, which is single subject acceleration, if your child participated in SSA last year, they already started out after the first week of school in their SSA class, and then students who were not currently enrolled had that opportunity through the testing process, and then just began recently taking those SSA classes, and they will continue. As with AIG services, which are offered through the different course offerings through our electives. Currently, AIG testing for the coming year is on hold. They're not doing that in the district. So when we get further information about AIG testing, as well as our beginning of grade testing for our third graders called the BOG for reading, that is also currently on hold, and we'll get more guidance coming up for that.
Hello, Mr. Grant. This is Manjari Lal. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to ask questions. My question is, what happens if the cases in the community rise after we start rotating the kids? Can the families switch their learning plans and put in a request for the second semester? And if so, when can they do this and how? Thank you.
All right, so this question from Ms. Lal. Thank you, Manjari Lal, for asking the question. What happens if COVID numbers start going up after we bring back Plan B kids? And also, what opportunities will families have for making a change of plan? So our school system and our superintendent, Kathy Moore, have been doing really an outstanding job about taking into clear account the guidance of our governor, the CDC, and the North Carolina Department of Health to make decisions to balance out the varied needs of families, students, and staff across the district. If our COVID numbers start going up, I know that our governor and our state, as well as our county, will take that guidance into account. And then potentially, do you go back to remote learning where everybody is remote or not? And if COVID numbers decrease and we continue to improve, do we bring back more students into the building? Regardless, you will have a choice to indicate a preference to switch plans at the mid-year point. That choice form should be coming out for you, and you're able to make that choice the first week of December. So be on the lookout first week in December for the form if you would like to switch from Plan B back to Virtual Academy, or if you're in Virtual Academy and you want to come back to Plan B. So you'll have that opportunity based on your selection, and again, you will have that form and that open change period in the beginning of December, and that would take place in the middle of January at the semester change. Well, I hope that guidance has been helpful. As always, thank you, families, for asking such great questions. I hope it's provided some good guidance for questions that families may have had. As always, I'm available to anyone. If you've got questions, just give me a call or reach out to me by email so I can best support you and your family. Thanks.